webinar. Thank you very much, and enjoy the webinar.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Michael. Let's get started. My name is Jeff Porter. I'm a senior SAP security consultant with Xiting. You knew Michael. You just heard from Michael. He's our VP of Sales and Marketing. Today, we're going to go through the 7-8 modules of the XAMS software. I'm going to go through some slides, and then I'll jump over into the system and give a demo. Excuse me. As we do each module, feel free to ask questions. As Michael said, just raise your hand in the or type in your questions in the control box for the GoToMeeting. Okay, so XAMS basically is a suite of software tools, 7 tools, basically 7 modules. We have the role designer, which virtually lets you design roles based off STO3N data. So you can design them in your development system using production data. We have the ABAP Alchemist, which is mainly a developer tool, but it has some really nice security features. If you're a security administrator, it has some really nice features in there that you'll want to look at. It basically analyzes your custom ABAP code for missing authority checks or bad programming. For security administrators, we're really interested in the security side of it. We have the role builder. The role builder lets you analyze the data that comes back from our productive test simulations and the protected go live. We have a role replicator. This is a really neat tool that helps you maintain the org units for roles. We'll go through a little bit of that and show you some of that today too. Exciting Times is the module that is used to do the protected go live and the productive test simulations. And we'll go through that in a little bit of detail and show you how that works. It basically lets you test roles in a passive manner in production, for lack of a better term, but you'll see it when we get to it. We have the role profiler. Role profiler is basically a set of reports, almost I think it's a little over 90 reports now, to help you analyze and maintain and just keep an eye on your roles, monitor your roles and your security status. We'll go through that. We have the security architect. The security architect is a module that defines your security concept. A lot of companies, you have to define a security concept. You probably have a document that defines all of that. We go one step further in that we allow you to test that concept as well. So we'll go through a lot of that, but there's a way to save your results, and you can test them, and you can even compare results, so you can show your progress to management. If you're a security administrator, that's always a big one, is remediation progress. They always want the remediation. We also have a few tools. We probably won't get into them today. There's a couple of free tools, which is a user locking tool. If you're a security administrator, this is something you generically usually have to create manually. We have one that we give away for free. We also have an RFC stock take tool, which is an RFC monitoring tool. It's basically step 1 when you're going to do a RFC remediation thing, and we give that away as well. We probably won't get into those today. If you have questions about those, definitely contact us and let Michael know, or me, and we'll get you some more information on that. All right, so let's get going. Role profiler. So the role profiler is a set of 90 reports-ish, 90-ish reports, maybe a little more, that help you improve your role quality, detect critical accesses, optimize your SU-24, detect issues, potential issues with your role concept. Here is just a small list of some of the roles or some of the reports. We have reports that dictate manual authorizations, open authorizations, changed authorizations. So if you've changed, if somebody's gone in and changed an authorization in a role from the SU-24 standard, it'll tell you. We have stuff that goes through org fields, derived roles, role customizing. The big one of the biggest that we like is the SU-24 optimization reports. That's a big part of security, is the SU-24. Usage reports, STO3N. We do a lot with the STO3N data to help monitor and do role redesigns. Activity watchdog reports. These are reports to help you maintain your current security concept. We have role versioning, role transport reports. We do some stuff in the BW analysis authorizations. HANA reporting, we're going to show you one of those reports here in just a minute. The RFC service reports, and we have some query reports. We typically have way too many to go through in this demo, but we're going to give you a look at some of them. All right, so let's jump over to our system. If I can find my system. All right. So this is the exciting times when you go into exciting times, or not exciting, when you go into the XAMS system, sorry. This is what you'll see. This is the list of the modules. We are looking at SP12. And the first one we want to look at is the role profiler. This is the one with all of the reports. If I can get my mouse to work. There we go. We're going to go into the list. This is the list of all the reports. You'll see here we have all of the reports listed by folders. Let's take a look at the role quality sustainability section. So when we go into this module, we need to select our data that we want. All of the reports are based off of what we select in this screen up here, right? So if we hit selection, this is where we choose what roles we want to analyze. We can look at roles. We can do roles by created user. We can do roles by that were created on a date. Okay. We can show roles just created by me. These are just quick selections that you can do. Granted, if you have a lot of roles, for instance, if you click the Z only roles, some of the reports could take a while to run. So just keep that in mind. I already have a list set up for this demo. You can look for users and do your analysis based on users. We can look at it by STO3N data usage, designer project. We'll get into the designer project here in a while. So okay, so we've got our roles. Let's go on back. Let's look at some. Let's take a look at the first one, the manual authorizations. So this role is or this report is showing you is roles with manual authorizations inserted. We have some of the main ones defined automatically. So we have S-Start, so that'll be your WebDimpro stuff, S-Service, RFC, and then ST codes. Those are some of the big important ones that you really don't want manual authorizations in, manual insertions in, because those are places where the SU24 values haven't been used, right? And so it causes problems with maintenance, and some of the reporting doesn't work right if stuff is manually inserted. There are a total of 22 manual insertions found, so if we double click on the 22, you'll see where all of the authorization fields are that have been manually inserted by role. So RFC, it's manually inserted, but there's no values. We've got an FI authorization here, same thing. So these are all a list of the ones where everything has been manually inserted. So this is real helpful in your maintenance, right? So you really want to keep an eye on these. We have open authorizations, so we should see a list of roles that have open authorizations, so the ones where they haven't been maintained, the fields and stuff haven't been in. We split it out by fields and org levels. So these will show you where we have open authorizations. So they still haven't been defined, the role's not completely generated correctly. And then we have some other ones down here that you can look through. Changed authorizations, again, this is ones where the SU24 proposals have been modified. Okay, so you generally don't want that. You need to look at it and decide if your roles, if your SU24 needs to be updated or if you need to change that authorization so it's a better fit. Let's see, what are some of the other ones we can go to here? SU24, again, we preach SU24 a lot with this modules. With our product, SU24 is really the SAP best practice for maintaining roles. So you really want to keep in a strong SU24. S-Taboo dis is always a big one. So here we have SU24 being called by, or the S-Taboo dis being called by a parameter T code. So this would be the transaction. It's in 14 roles. The parameter that's being called is SM30. For this table, the red light is telling us that the object doesn't exist in SU24. For this, it hasn't been turned on, and there's no values selected. Name, same thing. STabu name, same deal. This transaction, when this is empty over here, there's no lights. This tells you that there's no need for STabu CLI for this transaction. You can go out and look at SU24 directly by double-clicking on this button here. It'll jump you right out to SU24. Or you can update the fields manually with our predetermined values, with whatever it's needing. If you just click on these arrow buttons, it will go and update SU24 automatically for you. Same thing for STabu nom. Double-click on that, it'll go and update SU24 automatically for you. I want to show you the HANA reports in this module before we go any further. Let's go through. We also have some stuff for HANA, since HANA is the up-and-coming thing. It's what everybody's going to end up going to eventually. We're all going to have HANA, whether we like it or not. The reports here that have HANA in capital letters at the beginning, those are all reports that we provide that you have to have a HANA database. They go out and they look at the HANA database directly. We do not have a HANA database to test with or to show you on the demo, but for our purposes, one of the main reports that you really want to see, that I think is really good, is the migration report. So what this report will tell you is it'll analyze your current ABAP roles, and it'll look at them and tell you what's going to happen to them when you go to HANA, right? What's going to change in the role. So for this role, the cost accountant role that we have 12 transactions that are going to become obsolete, and we have 2 transactions that are going to be introduced. So if we double click on the 12, we'll give you a nice report that basically tells you here's the transaction that is obsolete. It's for this first one, CK11. You can look at the SU24 values for it, and it's going to be replaced with CK11N, okay, which we all know the N stuff basically means new. We have one down here that's being introduced, so the transaction is not even going to be close to what it used to be. So you now have the long, we're going to go to the longer transaction names here. All right, so the last 2 are really changing quite a bit. If there's an OSS note, we have information here. You can double click on it, and it'll show you the OSS note number. I believe you can double click on it and actually jump to the OSS note, but I'm not going to do that because our system sometimes takes a while since it's over in Germany. So this is a really good report if you're getting ready to scope a HANA conversion. This report is really, really good for helping you get a handle on what kind of work you have ahead of you for your roles. It's a good report to, when you're scoping the project, to give to management for time estimates, for role changes, that kind of stuff. All right. And so that's kind of just a quick overview of the role profiler. It's essentially, again, just a list of reports to help you maintain and monitor your authorization concept in your roles. So your security stance, basically. So, all right, so the next thing we want to talk about is the role designer. So the role designer, excuse me, enables you to use production data in your development system to create roles virtually. So the days of when you were sitting in a room with all of your business team, asking them what transactions they use, and where they need to go and what roles for the redesign. This is going to help simplify that in a great deal. And I'm going to show you how in just a second. This is a sort of look, kind of how, so we work with composite roles. So if you have composite roles in your system, we can certainly work with composite roles. We can mass replicate roles. So essentially we can create roles. Once you define it, you can replicate that role to multiple different flavors of that role. You can help maintain role quality, so a lot of the reports that we just looked at in Role Profiler can be applied to these. So you can go through and look at them. You can apply your black list, your gray list, your white list kind of analysis to it. You can look at the SU24s. You can do all of that watchdog stuff we were looking at. Okay. We can also help simplify org field maintenance, which we're going to get to in a little bit. And, oh, I actually jumped way down to role replicator. Sorry, that was the wrong one. So you're probably going, what the heck? Okay, so let's go look at it. So we're going to go back out to the Xiting All transaction. Eventually. There we go. And we're going to run to the role designer. We'll start the Xiting role designer. So the way this works is we're going to, when you do this on your system, you would create a project in development, transport it to production. You would go to production and you would create your selection screen, get your users, get the STO3N data, load it into that project, and then load it back into development. I've already done that because it's kind of time consuming and doesn't really provide any information for you. But essentially that's what happens. You pull your STO3N data into a zip file, bring it back to development, load it into the project, and then we can run the project and we can build the project. So once you build your project or have it in development, you'll see that we have a lot of information, right? So you'll have the description, the day it was created, when it was changed. You get some really important information on how many users are in your project scope, the transactions. So this is all of the transactions that all of the users have used, pulled in with this product. RFCs, we didn't take any RFCs with this project, but you can pull RFC information as well. Authorization totals, there's 225 authorizations, and there's one role. And the role that's in here, I'll show you in a minute, it's one that I created. And it also tell you how many months, the date range, and how many months of data included. I have 8 months worth of data here. Typically, you need at least 3 for a good STO3N data. And there's some other reasons for why you would do that. You want to get a close. Basically, you want to get a month-end close. That's a real big one. And anything more than that, you can start getting some sketchy data because people move around in the company. And so you could get some false positives on who's using what. So once we have our project created, we're going to go into Designer. And this is the screen that we see. Let me hide this. I don't want to move it. I want to hide it. All right, so it's not going to hide for me today. So we'll just scoot it out of the way. Hang on one second. Let me get to another screen. Okay. All right, so we have essentially 3 panes to this this module. We're missing a little bit of data over here on the right. Hang on one sec. There we go. Okay. So on this side, the first side, this is all the transactions from the STO3N input. Okay. We can look at this by different groupings. So we can look at it by no grouping, which it is now, so it's just a list of all the transactions in no particular order. We can look at it by SAP component. We can look at it by SAP package. And one of the biggest areas that you'd want to look at is by calling user. So if we look at by calling user, you'll see these are my 3 users, and we can see which transactions they've each used, okay? So that'll help you, if you're building a role based on a super user, you can use that user and get all the transactions grouped together. For the point of this demo, I'm just going to go to no grouping, just because I want to see all the transactions. We can create a new role. We can just double click on create new role. We can tell it what kind of role we want. You see we can start a composite role here. So we'll just call it Z demo JP. And so again, we're creating virtual roles. I haven't given a description, which is fine. I don't necessarily care about the description at this moment for this demo. And then to add transactions, we can just select them over here. We'll just select a few transactions and you just drag and drop. Okay, so now the transactions have been virtually added to this role. And if you want to add it to a user, you simply drag the role over and give it to the user. So when you do that, you now get some different information. All right, so we're now looking at this user. We can see that this user has used 110 transactions out of the project. I'm now authorized, I'm unauthorized for 108 of those transactions that I used. So we added 2 transactions. This role gave me 2 transactions that I was using, all right? And so I have 1.82% coverage out of 100. So the goal is to get as close to 100 as you want, right? So you want to get as many, you want to get this role back to as lean as it can be, but still give the user what they need. Okay, and so we're seeing here that this role has 4 transactions in it, which we know because we added them over here. Okay, we've added it to 1 user. Okay, and then on the other side, you now see that these transactions are in 1 role or 2 roles based on how many assignments we have. Okay. So one of the other things we can do here is we can import roles from the profile generator. So you've pulled your STO3N data in, you're working with it, you say, man, I'd really like to look at a role from profile generator that, you know, may not have been included in that. So we go over to reports. Let me save this real quick. And why did we just bail out? Go to, we want role reports. We want to list the role status. So now here's our roles. I have my demo, the one that we just created. We have 4 T codes in it. It's assigned to 1 user. If I want to, I can create the role. I can push this role, the T codes, into the menu right here. I can create the role in Profile Generator just with the push of a button. I can say, let's go, I like these roles where they're at, let's go build it. What it'll do is it'll take the transactions, because we're only dealing with transactions at this point. STO3N doesn't deal with authorizations. So we're going to take the transactions, we're going to import it into the menu, and you'll have a role there that you can go now generate and fill in your authorization data. So let's say we want to add a role like we were talking about from Profile Generator. We can import roles from real PFCG data. And go in here, we can tell it what role we want. Let's go Z demo star, find a role. All right, it's not going to let me do that. Fine. Come on. All right, so I know I have a composite over there. So Z demo underscore XAMS underscore composite. I'm pretty sure that one still exists. Okay, for whatever reason, this is deciding it's going to be a pain today, so it's not working. Why? Okay, so anyway, if you wanted to, you could drag in roles here. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do that today. Import roles. That is supposed to be where we do this at. Why is that not working? Let me try it one more time. Ooh, that's not good. That's not what we want. Import roles from real PFCG. Ah, there we go. Okay, I don't know why it didn't work just a minute ago, but here we go. So let me find my Z demos. Actually, we'll just bring one in. I think this is a pretty good one. All right, so when you do this, you get a pop-up screen that asks you, where do you want to bring it? You want to bring import single roles from composites. Again, if we're working with composites, we can bring it all in. We can ignore composites. This isn't a composite. We'll say it's not. Translate delivered into template roles. That's fine. This isn't a derived role either. Say enter. This is it. I want to bring it in. Oh, dang it. I didn't select it. Bear with me 1 second. There we go again. is that not finding ZDIM? That's weird. All right, let's bring this in. Upload now complete. Oh, it probably did. It just didn't. I didn't refresh it. That's what it was. All right, so let's go back over to Designer. Yep, there's our roles. So there's the 2 roles. I didn't refresh the data. That's why it didn't show up. So we now have our roles here brought in from Profile Generator, and we can assign those roles to users. We can give it to the CEO of our company and say, here you go. And we can see that he is way over authorized. He used 9 T codes. He's still unauthorized for 8, but we've given him 37. Okay. So this helps you create all of your roles virtually. Again, those days where you were sitting in with the business, designing this, asking them the T codes, you cut a lot of that back and forth stuff out. You have the actual production data, and you can now sit and be productive much faster with your business teams to create their roles. All right, so that was the role designer. We don't want to save that.
Jeff, maybe very quickly, do we have any questions that needs to be answered so far? We covered now 2 modules.
I don't know. I got the cockpit design hidden.
I haven't seen anything yet. Maybe just give them 5 seconds to either raise their hands or to type in the questions in the questions box. Okay.
I don't see any.
I can't see any yet, so I think we just continue.
Okay. All right. So let's jump back over to the slide. All right. So at this point, we've virtually designed some roles, and theoretically, in your project at this point, you would push those to Profile Generator, generate them, push them up to production. So one of the other things we need to do now is discuss the role replicator. The role replicator allows us to maintain org values, your org values in sets. It's essentially our version of derived roles, only without the derived role constraints. So you're dealing with single roles. Single roles can be used and administered a lot easier than the derived roles, with the exception of when you have a lot of roles that you have to maintain the org fields for, or that you have to add transactions to, and then you have to push it through 500 roles or whatever it is. This module helps you with that maintenance. Now we also have the ability to deal with derived roles, so if you can use this tool with derived roles as well, and you gain a lot of benefits there as well. So what we do is we simplify your composite roles, okay? So you can help reduce the need for composite roles. You can mass replicate roles, again, if you're using a derived role concept and you don't necessarily want to be married to the derived roles. You can use this. You can maintain the role quality. Again, the reports are all used that we looked at in the role profiler, can all be used on the org set area. And we can simplify your org field maintenance, okay? So let's jump over and take a look at that real quick. Again, we're going to go back out to, no, I don't want to save. Let's jump back out to signing all. Okay, and then we're going to go to the, where is it? The role replicator, there we go. We're going to start the mass replication tool launchpad. And so you see we have a bunch of tools here. These are a bunch of reports and tools that you can use. There's the mass generation. You'll recognize a lot of these. The first couple you may not, but we have role assignments. You can do mass role assignments from Excel, composites, so just a whole bunch of different things you can do here. What we're interested in is the org set replication tools. Here we're going to do our maintain org sets. And I'm going to collapse this real quick so we can just focus on the ones that I want to focus on, which will be down here. All right, so down here we've created a couple of org sets. These are actual org groups, so you can have nested groups. You can have groups within groups within groups. So you can basically build your entire org structure here. These are org sets. And under the org sets, you'll see the values, okay? So you recognize the values here. So we have, company code, business. This one has, several different ones in here. We can add fields. We just click on the add fields to the org set, and all of anything you've promoted to an org value is here, minus what's already in the org set. So if you have custom objects or custom fields that you've created and you've promoted them to org sets or org values, they'll show up here as well, and you can add them. Okay. So I've created just two different org groups with several different org sets. So once we've created the org groups and the org sets and given the values that we want, so we've essentially built out our org structure inside the groups, we can then go and add them to roles or create roles. We can replicate roles, do whatever we want. We do that through here. And you'll see now we have a template role. So essentially you have to pick a template role just like you do with derived roles. You have the parent. Here we call it a template role. We're going to pick a template role. So we have a role and profile generator that we want to use as our template role. In this case, I want to focus on these here. So these are my test roles that I've created. This is a role, an actual role and profile generator. These are all roles and profile generators. Once I replicate these roles, it'll actually create them in Profile Generator based off of this role. To do that, we go here and we choose our template role. Again, it would be ZJP org set replication test, and we give it a name for the replicated role. And then we pick which org set we want to use. I'm not going to do that here because I have a huge list of stuff already. But that's how we would create it, and then we'll see that this is created here. Once you create the roles, right, we can now analyze the org sets. This is, you'll see the org set that's assigned. These are the different org sets. And you'll see the status. Okay, you'll see a status of yellow, and we can do a compare. Let's go take a look. You'll see that we have a yellow one. The reason that's yellow is that we have org fields defined. Here's our org set. These are the org fields. The X's here, these are showing you org values that are in the role, our replicated role, that are not in the template role. Okay, so we have in the org set, we have warehouse number, but it's not used in our role. Okay, and that's okay if that's how you want to go. You don't have to have a one-to-one relationship with all of your roles. Okay, just be warned that you will get yellows when you do the synchronization, but that's okay. If you're aware of that, then you're good. If you have a role that is completely good, we'll go into this one, you'll see everything's there except for plant, and plant is a special deal in our system. We have some things around that. That's why it's showing up there, but that's okay. It's in the org set, but it doesn't show up as a yellow, and that's based on configuration that we have in the system. So you'll see that the org sets has all these values, and that's exactly what's in the role. Okay. So let's go down one more, and we'll see that this role here, our replicated role for Texas, this is my Texas org set, is not synchronized. The org fields are out of sync. Let's take a look at that one. All right, again, we'll see that we have business area in the org set, we have 9001. In the replicated role, we have nothing. There's nothing there. It hasn't been, where somebody's gone in and changed it, or we haven't pushed this across. That's an easy matter to fix. We can just double click on the synchronize. If you want, you can write these changes. If you're doing this in development, you can write the changes directly to a transport. I'm not going to do that in this case, but we have it tied into the transport system, so you can automatically have the change moved in. Okay, and so it just did it. Let's refresh. And open it up. Am I in the right one? Nope, that was the wrong one. There we go. And now the Texas, it's all synchronized. So we've pushed that change out to the role. The role's been changed and generated, post-generated. It's all good. So we're now in sync. Okay. So just like in derived roles, changes that you make, we give you one place to look at the entire thing, your entire org structure, see what's in sync, what's out of sync. You can synchronize all, You can just click this, and it, you could set it up as a job so it goes through once a day and synchronizes everything just to make sure that everything is in sync. You can transport. We have a bunch of different tools around this. Okay, so this is essentially our way of using single roles as derived roles, if you needed an analogy. Keep in mind that we also have the ability to work with derived roles. So we can set this up so you can use derived roles and maintain your org values through here. And if at some point you ever want to uninstall and not use the org sets or the role replicator, it's an easy matter. It's not a problem to do, and you will not lose your derived role configuration. So it won't impact your derived roles if you ever need to uninstall. Okay. So one of the reasons you might do this is if you rent the software and the project's over and you need to go back to your derived role concept, you can. It's an easy uninstall. All right. So, are there any questions around that? That's that the role replicator can be a bit confusing. Let's just take a second and see if we have any questions around the role replicator. All right, doesn't appear that we do. Okay, so let's move on to our next module. All right, so the next module is the ABAP Alchemist. Again, this is mainly a developer tool, but it has some really neat and good security features to it. I am a security consultant by nature. I've been doing it for 20 some odd years, and the stuff in the role or the ABAP Alchemist is really good. All right, so what the Alchemist is basically designed to do is to analyze your custom code. It'll look for existing missing authorization checks. It'll do some other stuff for the developers as well. It'll detect vulnerabilities. Has an API finder, so your developers can actually reuse code based off of SAP recommendations, and it's actually SAP and ASUG recommended APIs. And you can also optimize your issue 24 based on the vulnerabilities that are found or missing authorization checks. Okay, so let's go take a look at it. And we'll start there. All right, so the initial screen that you see here is if you have a test that you want to run on a regular basis, you can set up basically a variant, which is what this screen is designed for. It'll let you set up your inspections. We call them inspections when we're doing scans. The objects you want to look at the variant. So it'll basically, you can build your own variant, run it as a background job once a week, once a month, however often you need to do it. We can also tie this into the transport system. So if you were going to do that, and when somebody releases a transport, this can be tied into the transport system. So this check is done automatically against the objects in that transport. For the demo, we're going to look at an ad hoc. This is where you're just going to do a one-off. We're just going to run this as a one-off. Our first thing is we have to tell it what we want to look at. We have a bunch of different objects we can run this against. We have roles, packages, function groups, function modules, programs, transactions, yada yada, the whole bunch of stuff here. One of the biggest ones you'll probably use if you're a security administrator is the program one, maybe the function module and the function group or the transaction, but the program. And the typical use case scenario is somebody comes to you in the business and says, hey, we wrote this program, we need you to build a transaction and put it in a role. You want to analyze the report. Before now, standard SAP, you really didn't have a way to go look, hey, are the correct authority checks in there? Are there even authority checks in there without just drilling down through the code? And most of us are not ABAPers, so you really don't know what you're looking at. We have the ability to look at different things. I'm going to give it a program first. That's my test. Okay. So we have the ability to scan for different things, and as always, we have information here. If you click on it, it'll give you a little pop-up and tell you what it's looking for. Okay. Okay, for us, we're essentially interested in the authority stuff. So we're looking for missing authority check statements. You can look at critical ABAP keywords if you want. Sometimes that'll pick up some stuff that you're interested in, essentially around tables, for instance. If somebody's calling a table and they haven't coded an tabu dis check in there, this will pick it up every once in a while. Switchable authorization checks, so your SACF transactions, you can look for those. We're not going to do that because it takes a while in this system. Authority checks in the HR area, we can look for that. You can look for some OpenSQL, the get set parameters, sometimes that's interesting, and the call transaction authority checks. Down at the bottom, we can tell you how you can tell the system how far you want it to look. So a lot of the programs, they'll call includes, they'll jump to other programs, other transactions, they'll even jump out of the system and go look. You can tell it how far down the rabbit hole, basically, you want it to go. 5 levels is typically more than enough. We found that that's a standard that you can get 99% of the time, everything. If you need to go farther, just realize that the deeper you go, the longer the runs can take, right? So just keep that in mind. You can run it as a background job if you need to. I happen to know this one's going to go pretty quick, so we'll run it real quick. Okay, and so we get the different the report. All right, so on the report, this is the basic view. Pretty big, shows you a lot of information. Let me see if we've got stuff hanging off on the right here. Yeah, a little bit. Let me shrink some of this up so we can actually see it. There we go. Okay. All right, so authority check statements, that's essentially all that was found. One of the best ways to look at this is the authority check view, and then it's really just going to pull back your authority checks. And so it'll tell you the line in the code where the issue happened. Okay. It'll tell you the object. Okay. So this is not the authorization object, this is the object type based on the object type, okay, for programming. We click on the warning here. It'll tell you the reason. This is what happened. The authority check return code handling was not recognized and it was found outside the reserved context. Right, so it's your access permission stuff. Tells you the object that was checked. It'll tell you the fields all the way across. Okay, and then you'll get a lot more information over here to the right. Okay, so what this is telling you is that the field name is dynamic. So this is your this is one of your SACF, the switchable authorizations. Okay, somebody in our system has defined that as a switchable authorization. All right, we've got this one here. Field value is not tested. So essentially, what this is telling you is they're doing an authority check on some, or they're doing an authority check on something that doesn't matter. It's defined in SU24 as not relevant. So you really don't need this authority check in the code. Okay, it's calls. It'll tell you the call stack. Okay, so your developers can scroll down and they'll see what's missing. All right, and so another use case scenario on this for you is in our example, the business has come to you and they said, hey, we've had a custom program created. We need a T code and put it in a role. You run your check and you say, well, you know, we've got some issues first. You can go back and send this. You can export it out. So you can export it out, send it to your developers and say, hey, we can't transport this forward, or we can't do this work that's being requested by the business until you fix these errors. They have everything they need. They can run this. Okay, in certain views you can double click on the line and it'll actually bring up the code, so they'll know exactly where to do it. Okay, so what this tells you is, in your cases, in the use cases, is we can now, as security administrators, we can scan the code for the security side, the security stack, right? And we can go back to the developers and say, hey, your code is not up to par. You need to get this done before we move it. Again, this is another check that can be tied into the transport system. So if they want to release it and move it up as part of the checks that are done when the code is released, this check can happen against there. Okay, and so you can basically stop the transport release until these are all green. Okay, So all the errors have to be fixed and documented. All right. So that's a very good tool as a security administrator, something that I always wish I had way back, and it'll help you with auditing. Right. So one of the things you can also do is in your mid-audit cycle, you can do a cold eyes review of custom code, run it, and get stuff preactively done before your auditors roll in. So you're not changing things right before the auditors roll in and they're thinking you're fixing stuff just because they're coming. Okay, you can actually show that you're doing it on a regular basis. Okay, so that's another one. Do we have any questions on the Alchemist, on the ABAP Alchemist? All right, I am not seeing anything. All right, so we'll move on. Hang on one second, I gotta take a drink of water here. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the role builder and exciting times. They go together. So on the initial slide, you saw we had maybe 8 modules, and it's really because these two are considered one. They're the ones that you have to have together. So we'll have the role builder and we have exciting times. The role builder is used for productive test simulation, but it started with the exciting times module. We're going to look at the configuration screen a little bit, and then we're also going to look at the report that you analyze out of the role builder for this. The role builder is used for both the productive test simulation and the protected go live. It is where you do the analysis from both of those. They're both basically run the same way. The productive or the protected go live has a few extra workflow things you can turn on, which we'll look at a little bit in just a second. Lost my train of thought. Okay, but that's essentially these two modules kind of have to be covered together. All right, so for a productive test simulation, the benefits you get, you can test roles risk-free without impacting end users, and you can do it right in the production system if you want. Usually when I mention that, we start getting the audit questions. Oh, audit's going to have problems with that. Okay, so essentially, it's passive testing. We're not going to impact the users in any way, and generally, you're not going to give them any more access than they already have access to. The idea of a role redesign is to pare down the roles so they're not so big. That's 95% of all the cases we get for this is the roles are too big on the dialog user. We need streamlined roles. All right, so essentially we do passive testing in production. You can also do this in your acceptance environment you want, but you lose some of the benefits. So some of the benefits of doing the production test simulations are the users don't have to stop what they're doing in production. They don't have to stop working their day-to-day job to come and test in your test environment. You don't have to administer the test environment, right? Again, you don't have to create those users, hand out passwords. You don't have to, do the whole, oh, I can't log in, or they've locked my user. You're in control of the test as a security administrator. The user doesn't even have to know they're testing. That's one of the big benefits. You cut your test time virtually in half, maybe more. The test can go on as long as you want too. The results are recorded. The results are saved. They're saved in the exciting table space. They don't go away unless you go and hack and compress the data. It stays. So there's not logs that are going to get overwritten or archived. Okay. We can also do automatic role building, and that's typically used in the case of RFCs. Actually, there's two use cases for that. So the first one is an RFC optimization. You can, when you're doing that, you can create delta roles on the fly. And so as the RFC is working, it'll create the delta roles and your RFCs don't stop, right? So you're not impacting jobs or import type jobs coming in from other groups and stuff. The other use case scenario for delta roles is if you're in a brand new implementation. Typically what we used to do is we used to turn on the STO1 trace, give the user SAP all, SAP new, let them run, right? And it would generate, huge amounts of logs, and you can filter through and go pick it. What you can do with the Delta role in the productive test simulation is you can do the same kind of scenario in a development system, give the user SAP all SAP new, and you can set this up and it'll create the Delta role for you directly in development. So the user, as they're plugging away, doing their stuff, testing, it builds the role. So you don't have the log anymore. You've now got the role built. So you would get a log, but you still have the role built, and you can go through and work that. So it does a lot of that work for you automatically. So that's the two use cases. I would not suggest using the Delta role thing for a role redesign in production. Okay, we have reporting. So you'll see a list of all the reporting here in just a second. All right, if I didn't go one thing. So the way the actual production test simulation works is it will have a user. We're going to look at this middle. Let me blow this up a bit so you can actually see it better. We're going to use this middle. This is our production test simulation. You're going to have the user. This is our dialogue user, and they're running on production with their just normal roles, their normal everyday stuff. In the background, what we're going to do is we're going to give them a reference user, and I'll show you how we set that up in a second. We're going to give them a reference user, and we're going to give them our new role, our new job role, for instance, that we're wanting to test. So the user has this on their test, has the test role on their backpack, if you will, but it's really just their reference user, and they're running every day. They don't even know they have this. You don't even have to tell them, all right? It's probably better that you don't, so they don't try transactions that they shouldn't be trying anyway. So day to day, Joe comes in, 8 o'clock in the morning, he just starts his job all day. So what happens is every authorization check that happens against this user, thanks to a change that SAP made for us a few years ago, is tested first against the role on the reference user. Okay, so we're going to test this role, this authorization first on this role. If it passes, fine, the user goes on his way and does his thing. If it fails, it is then tested against the dialogue user access, the normal everyday test. Okay, if it passes there, but we failed on our new role, it gets logged. The system gets the return code, it logs it for us, and we can go look and analyze that. If it fails in both places, it's not logged. The user just gets his normal SU53, and he can't run the transaction. Okay, so that's the productive test simulation. When you move to production, the test is different. We're going to switch it. We're going to take the user's new role, and we're going to give it to him as a dialogue user. So now Joe is going to come in the morning. He's going to start running with our new role. Okay, but if we miss something, highly unlikely, but if we miss something, he has his old roles on his backpack, on his reference user, and he can check it out just like you do with an emergency fire call type. I guess firefighter is the term now, firefighter role. Okay, and so as an administrator, you can define workflows around that setup and approvals, and there's a bunch of different things that you can set up. You can tie it into your ticketing system for them to do this. So that's really the only difference between the production go live and the test simulation. Okay, the test simulation doesn't have workflow in it. The productive go live does. Productive go live, think of it more like we're giving the users the go live. So we're cutting over. The user has the new role, and in the background, they have the ability to get the old roles back if they need them. Okay? So let's go take a look at those two. First thing we're going to do as an administrator is we have to set up, we're going to look at the productive test simulation first. So we're going to go into exciting times, because this is where we control the actual tests and the go lives. Okay, let me go into the additional. Okay, so this is our configuration as an administrator. This is where you go to configuration. So we have install wizards to help you install it, customizing wizards, simulation mode, user cloning. You can clone users with this. So if you don't have the reference users for a team, say the FI team, you can use this tool to create all the reference users for them. Okay, we can maintain our reference users. If we click here, you'll see we have reference user, we have the owner, right? So whoever owns that ID, or that maybe their supervisor, maybe you want it to be the security administrators in charge of the testing, however you want to do. For the simulation mode, which is the productive test simulation, it doesn't really matter who the owner is. Typically, that's going to be a security administrator because you want the emails to go to you. But you can set up some email distribution lists around this too when you configure it. We don't necessarily care about these two columns for the productive test simulation. Those are mainly the workflow when you start the workflow and the approvals and the reviews. And you don't really care about the times for the simulation mode. You can set up times, but it really doesn't matter because you're controlling this manually. When you go to the productive test or not the productive, when you go to the protected go live, and that would be defined by comparison mode, then these become important. So if you want the user to be able to check out the IDs on or the access on the reference user, you can set up a workflow that says, okay, in order for you to do this, you have to request it, and then it sends an email via SAP mail to the owner. The owner has to then go in and approve it, and it's sent back to the user, and they can then check out their access. You can also set up a post review. So when the user checks it back in or the time expires, a review is sent, and somebody has to go and approve or review everything that was done. Again, they'll get the log, and they can approve it inside the mail, and you have it documented. Again, you can also set up the hours. We can say that these users can only check out their old access for 2 hours or for an hour. You can set it up where we're going to go through a close. Let's give them the ability to do this just so nothing happens with the close. Let's give them the ability to do this for 3 days, 4 days. And then what happens then is, as a security, you don't have to be present now, right? You don't have to be on call as a security administrator to deal with any type of failures that may happen. They have their old roles, they have the new role. If something happens, they have the ability to request the access, and you're never on call for it. So that cuts the time for the implementation, cuts the cost for having you on call. Everybody's happy, okay? So that's where we set up the reference user. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Maintain multi-mode. All right, so when we go into maintain multi-mode, we now have to assign the reference user to a dialog user. This is where we do that. All right, so we say, we give it a dialog user. So Joe's ID, we'll give Joe access to the reference user we created. We'll tell him what the dates from and to, and we'll give him an email group. Okay, so the email group, as I said before, when you set up the whole system, you can define one or multiple email groups. What that means is at the end of the day, when the testing is done, you can configure if you want it every hour, if you want it every day, every week, or just when the test starts and when it ends. It'll send you a copy of the log. Everyone in the email group will get a copy of the log. So maybe the role owner needs a copy. Maybe the security administrator definitely needs a copy. Maybe the security manager might want a copy. But it'll send updates, or it'll send the whole log to you at those times. Okay? All right, so let's say we're done. We've set it all up. We're ready for the test to start. We would start it up with the multi-mode. Double click on that. We select our users, and then there's another screen that pops up that you basically just start the test. I'm not going to do that here for sake of time. It could run a while. So our user, Joe, has gone in, and let's say he's run for a week. We've had the test going for a week, and he's been blown away. We want to see where we're at. That's where the role excuse me, the automatic role builder comes into play. Now we're going to go analyze the results. Start the engine, and we get a lot of different screens, a lot of stuff. We have some quick hits. You can see trace since last used. Okay, we can do trace last hour, and it'll change automatically the stuff here for the times right here. Okay. Let's trace for last week. I have a user that we've been testing with. We're going to say that our tester, Joe, was the FI debitor. Okay, we've been doing a test simulation, which means we've been doing the productive test simulation. We're going to do a client independent trace. We can show unique log entries, which means it won't show us redundant, right? So it's been recording if Joe's done something 500 times. We don't want to see it, we just want to see it once. We can do that. We can hide our blacklisted data. Again, this is used for, we have blacklist, whitelist, and graylist, which are completely customizable. We can hide the blacklisted data, and the reason you might want to do that is if you're only analyzing, say, a read-only role. You don't want to give blacklisted stuff to a read-only role, right? So you can filter that out. Okay. So as I said earlier, all of this data is written to the STO1 log, right? So it's the SAP STO1, but it's also written to the Xiting table namespace. You'll see USR07 data here. That's a do not think that is not the SAP USR07 table. This is the Xiting SAP, or the Xiting USR07 table. You can go in and manage that. Again, this is just the ugly version of the data. Let me show you the better version of the data. So all our stuff is still there. We click it, and we get our report. All right. So you get a lot of information on these reports. The first column, we'll just kind of go through them. If a role or a check, an authorization check, is highlighted dark green, as you see here, okay, versus the lighter green, that means that the check is in the white list that we have defined. It comes, the white list and the gray list and the black list comes defined with pre-populated data that Xiting and SAP provide. But you can also add your own stuff for custom transactions, that kind of stuff. What the add means is that if you're doing delta roles, it'll add that automatically to the delta role, no problem. The red, stuff in red, means that's in your blacklist, okay? So it's just a warning that, hey, this is a blacklist transaction. You need to look at it pretty close before you just give it to a user. You'll see that it is not available for addition automatically. Reason being, it's blacklisted. We don't want to give access to whoever just automatically in a delta role. Okay, the light green stuff means that it's typically a blacklist item, but in this case, the system, the authorization itself, typically because it's a display, has been changed to a whitelist. It can be added automatically if you want. There's a configuration. You can flip that switch and say we can add those as well. Okay. The orange, I have no idea what, oh, it's actually yellow, I think. It's supposed to be yellow. All right, so the yellow is the gray list. I don't know why. I think it's my system settings is making it look orange. But the yellow is actually stuff that's on the gray list, and it's an in-between authorization on the list, and you can just make a manual decision what you want to do with that one. All right, so we get the username. It's our FI debitor, what client they were on. We get the date and time, the context, so it's FBO3, FBO1, session manager, that kind of stuff. Roles, this has to do with looking at the role that the authorization was found or the error was found. Source, this is another one you can jump to the code. Again, we provide lots of time, lots of places where we go and you can actually go look at the physical authorization check, okay, and see what's being called and where. Okay, the return code. Return codes are the return codes you're normally used to seeing, okay, depending on where it's come from, STO1 or SU53. This is SU53 for the simulation mode, so it means that the values were not found. So the field value for this was not found. So the object was there, right? The object was there on the reference user, but the field values were not that it was looking for. So it was looking for star, star, those weren't there. I don't have a 3 in here, but if the check failed because of the object is just not in the role, you'd get an authorization code, a return code of 3. Okay, so we'll tell you the reference user. So FI debitor, this is the reference user, so you know which reference user was being used, and it gives you the object and the fields. All right, so this is the data that you get back from your tests. And again, you can tie it to email distribution list, and you can get a PDF version of this, so it'll send you a report however often you decide you need the report. It can be exported, so you can save it. Okay, you can generate roles directly from this if you want. Okay, again, also the reporting for the SU24 and all of the reports from the role profiler we looked at apply to this as well. You can run them against these tests. Okay. So we've done our test simulation, and essentially the way this would work is you would let this test simulation run, and then you would get reports back and reports back. And theoretically what will happen is the amount of data you get back should go away, right? It should get smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually the user, you just don't get any returns back at all. The user's, we've captured everything he's done. Anything that's missing, we've got. Okay. At that point, you can go. You're comfortable going live, right? We've done our production test simulation. Joe has been running in production for 3 weeks, however long we've set up the test. We're not getting any data back for the last week. We're confident we can go live. So we cut him over. All right. So now we give Joe the new role, the new FI debitor role, we'll call it, and we move his old roles to the reference user. Again, we saw where we would set that up. We switch the test now to the comparison mode in our table in Xiting Times, and we get basically the same data back. Okay, we can run it. This time we're going to look at comparison mode. The same data. Let's do last week. FI debitor. Independent tray, show unique. Ugh, I just hit the wrong check part. Okay, so now what we're seeing is times when this user had to go back and get their reference, the old IDs, okay? So what this report is now telling us, because we're in comparison mode, is that the user was running along just fine, and for whatever reason, the new role that we gave him didn't work, and he had to go check out his old access. Okay, at that point, those codes, those return codes are captured, and of course they're going to pass because the new role let him do, the old roles let him do it, but you need to know about them. So at this point, what you're doing is you're looking at these as a security administrator and saying, do I need to go add these to the new role? Is there something we missed in our redesigned roles? And that's what this report is now telling you. Okay, again, the same colors apply. This is a whitelist item. It could have been added directly, again, with a Delta role. The yellow stuff here is all whitelist or gray list. Okay, so that is a quick, admitted, very high level look at the production test simulation and the production or the protected go live. Do we have questions on that? If you do, just type them into the GoToMeeting control box for questions. Typically we get a few questions here, but if you don't have any, that's good. Okay. All right, so we will move on. So really we're pretty much done. There's one more item that I need to show you. It's called the security architect. Essentially this is where you define your security concept and you can test it and keep history and do compares against the results. This is a very good tool as a security administrator. It's a really good tool for your auditing, for getting ready for audits and staying prepared for audits. It's a very good tool for remediation tracking, and so it provides good reporting for management. So if you're having to report to management and you need to show them progress on remediation and projects, this is a very good tool for that. Okay, so we can reduce effort with a security audit with this tool. We can ensure compliance. That's another good example of this. So if you have a security concept, you can ensure that you're compliant with that concept. Again, you can monitor your progress and compare the results of the progress. Again, this is very good for reporting to upper management, which is always big. We know managers love their PowerPoints and to be able to go to meetings and show progress. And we can use ready-to-use concepts. We have some out-of-the-box delivered concepts that you can use as templates and then update them and change them for your own use. We have them for the ERP, we have them for the NetWeaver stack, Java stack, GRC, Solution Manager, and HCM. Okay, so let's take a good quick look at that one. Again, we're going to go back to the Xiting All transaction, which is where everything launches from. We'll go into the security architect. One of the things I haven't shown you throughout this is there's all of the modules basically follow the same design. There's always a show documentation tab right here that you can click on. We have very extensive documentation in the form of a PDF, an Adobe Acrobat PDF, which you can double click on. It'll bring it up in another window and you can save that. So there's a lot of very detailed information on the fly for that. We want to start the security architect. Pick a document version. So as you create different versions of this, it'll create versions you can go back to and look at. Okay. So this is what you see when you first come in. We have the available templates, and we have use selections, systems, check scope, and check history. So we're going to go through those one at a time. So when you first start the system, you're going to get available sections. Okay. You'll see that we have the Xiting, which is just our standard delivered ERP one. We'll open it up, and inside of that we have different sections. Now what you'll see is this little icon here defines that it's just the standard one out of the box. This is the template. When you see this, this means that we've added or replaced sections within this. So we open it up, and we'll drill down. So we've probably changed one of these. That's probably what's happened somewhere in here. Yeah, so here's where we've changed the documentation here. So that's why it's showing up. We've added this stuff at the end, okay? So that's why it's showing us change. So that's basically what's telling you. The check mark indicates that we want to use that section in our document, all right? We can turn stuff off. We can use stuff in it. Be aware that when you turn things off, the checks within that section do not apply when we go to do the checks later. So we have like user administration is always a big one. All right, we can go down. Here we look at authorizations for different productive system users, right? Open it up. You get testing users. If we double click on anything, you'll see here, again, these are all changeable. You can just double click on them. Oh, we're not in the use section, that's why. Okay, we can go change these at will, all right? So we're gonna leave all those on. So once we've read through and we've selected and we've changed what we want to use, added our own data, you'll see this is stuff that we've uploaded, right? I have a test company one that I started. And you'll see this is our, so no access for anyone in the system, so it's completely secure. You know, so we've added our own stuff. We can use that if we want. We can turn it on and say we want to use it. Okay, and so here we've now gone through the first two sections, and at the end of those two sections, we've defined our system. We've defined our security concept. That's what you do in these first two areas. Go down to the use selection, and now you see the actual document, and you can generate it from here. Okay, so we can look at the general. And here it goes. With that. All right. So we can show and check in document. We can generate a concept document. We can actually generate the document here. Okay. All right. We can look across systems. So one of the best case uses for this is if you have Solution Manager, you can run this. You can define your security concept within Solution Manager, and it can cover any system and test across any system that is connected to Solution Manager. Okay. So you can test across multiple environments. We have two systems connected, so you can select them and say, yeah, we want it, this version we want to cover both environments, or you could have one that doesn't cover both environments. Okay. Then we get down to check scope. So now we've defined our concept. We defined what systems we want it to look at. Let's go test it. We want to go look at something and get some results back. So here are the tests that can happen, and these are based on the different selections that we've picked up here in our concept, right? So we can look at USR 40, we can look at dev access, We can look at standard users across the system, make sure that they're locked, they don't have easy passwords, whatever. Okay, I'm going to turn that one off because it can take a while. Again, when you do these tests, especially if you're going across systems, realize that it can take a while to run, so you might want to kick it off in the background. Okay, so we're going to do check and we can show in document, or we can do check and show in table. I'm going to show you both, but we're going to do the check and show in table first, because as security administrators, we're usually used to this. This is where it's asking you if you want to kick it off in background. Okay. If you want to do it, say yes. We don't, because I know this is not going to take very long. And then do you want to save the results, right? So later on, if you want to compare it, you can save the results. I'm going to say no for today because we've got plenty of data out there already. Okay, and so the system is run, it's looked, it says, okay, for developer access, in the DEM system, we've got an issue. We've got 2 existing developer keys, and in XIE, we have 5 existing developer keys. We can double click on it and it'll show us the developers and their keys. Okay. Now the reason these are showing up is because our systems are defined as production systems and we have developers with access keys in the production system. So based on the system setting, there might be some of these checks that can and can't happen, or they might produce error or issues like dev access that you're going, I don't understand why. All right, so that's essentially why you're getting those. USRO 40, we have warnings. Our USR 40 is woefully unprepared. It's only 1 entry in each of those systems. Okay, so those are the kind of results that you get, and that's the results. You can export them to Excel. So you can do a check and save it and show it as a table. This is the table format, which most security administrators like. We like the table stuff. If you want to document something you have to produce and give to auditors or your management, you can get the same thing here. And you'll get it. All of this would be based on your configuration when you set it up, would be your company logo and site, and then you'll get the document stuff. This is again something you would save and give to a manager. So the first time you set this up, for instance, let's go through a security administrator's scenario. The first time we do this and we run this test, we could generate a document like this, and we could also generate the table, and now we can build a project. If you're having to scope a project for a redesign or scope a project for an audit preparation, midterm audit preparation, these are excellent tools for that purpose. This gives you a definable scope. You'll see in just a second where we can get definable remediation progress reports. This is everything a manager wants to approve or needs to approve a project to get ready for, say, an audit or a redesign or whatever. When you have to sell a project to your managers, this is an excellent tool to do that. All right, so we've run it. Let's go and look at the check history now. So one of the things we can do now is we can go and actually compare our check results. And you see we've run lots of checks, you know. And here lately we've run quite a few. I've run a few. All right. So if we go up to, I think it's tools, compare check results. So we can say, let's do this, and let's pick a system, display the results. These are all the different check results that have happened. We'll go down to some of the recent ones and see if we can get some of them to match. Let's do Michael, our sales guy. Let's do the last 3 checks. We'll run it. Let me scoot this over. Apologize. Okay, and so here we are with the check results. Okay, we can export them to Excel, and we get the different issues. So we have inconsistent naming conventions, 14 users with critical authorizations, and these don't really match because there's different people running different tests for different things, but in your system, these would typically all be the same check that you would run every time. Again, you can run these checks, you can schedule this as a background job, so you can run your remediation progress checks every week to see where you're at and provide data again to your managers. But this is an example of the different checks. You can also compare checks that have gone cross-system. So if you want to compare, say, your USR 40, make sure you have a standard USR 40 set list that you like in all your systems. You can compare it across all the systems and say, show me if my USR 40 is consistent across all environments. Another big one for cross environment is the default users. We want to make sure all the default users are set correctly. System parameters is a whole section on system parameters that you can do. So again, this is a very good tool for monitoring and showing progress for your security authorizations. All right. So that's essentially it for the XAMS tools, the XAMS modules. Do we have any questions on anything we've covered at all? We're at 9:22, so we're going to give you about a half hour of your day back, probably. No? Okay. So again, this has been recorded. You should get a link to the recording in about 24 hours. We're all going to be at Sapphire this year, so if you happen to be at Sapphire, come and visit us, say hi. If you have any questions, feel free to contact myself or Michael. We'll be happy to set up a conference call or just shoot you an email back with whatever you need. And thanks for your time. Hope everybody has a good day.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And thanks, everybody.